Welcome to the channel Trim It Color. In these videos I am going to create this scene and I am going to show you each and every steps from modeling till the rendering, and in this particular session I am going to model this hut. Before doing the modeling I have done some preliminary sketches of this particular scene and then I am going to start in Maya. Here I am assuming that you know the basic interface of Maya. So let's get started. I have planned to do the block-in out of a cube. So going to create polygonal primitive and click on cube. Now scale it up and translating it in y-axis. Now going to its input nodes and increasing the subdivision level up to 3. Now selecting the edges from sides, push it downward and give it a shape of the hut. Selecting the bottom faces and decreasing it just to get a proportion. Now going to the mesh tool and selecting offset edge loop tool and giving 2 edge loops at the similar distance. Now going to the side view and adjusting the vertices, making both the sides an arc. Now inserting one more edge loop at the middle and taking offset edge loop tool once again. As you can see, I have given 3 edge loops. Now I want to extract all the sides and want to convert all the sides into different polygons. So selecting the faces of different sides, I am going to edit mesh and select extract. By selecting the faces of different sides, I am doing the same thing and still more sides are remaining, so I will separate these also. I am doing the same thing and you can see now all the sides are different polygons. Alright, now let's make the wooden bars. So I am going to create and taking a cube once again and I'll just place it at its position and now selecting the vertices and giving it a shape of the wooden bar, and from the side view I'm doing the same thing by adjusting the vertices. Alright, now I am going to replicate this wooden pillar to all the 4 sides. So by selecting this, I am going to modify and clicking on freeze transformation, and you can see all the transformation value is freezed. Now changing the pivot point by holding D in the keyboard and snapping it to the center axis, and now Ctrl D and duplicating it, and x-axis will be -1 so that it will go to that side. Now I am changing the pivot point of both the pillars to the center line and going to duplicate it once again. This time the Z scaling value should be -1 so that both the pillars will come towards the Z direction. Now I am taking another cube for the wooden bar of the roof. I am adjusting the size a little bit and by selecting the vertices I am changing the shape, and now I am going to insert a couple of edge loops by insert edge loop tool, that is the insert edge loop tool shortcut, and now adjusting the loops along the edges I created previously and giving it a shape. Going to the side view and you can see it is not its position, so by selecting the loops once again I am changing the shape. Alright, now select the geometry, going to modify, freeze transformation. You can see it is freezed, and adjusting the pivot point at the center. Now duplicate and X value -1, and by selecting both, once again duplicate and Z value -1. Now let's create these side plans, and for this also I am taking a cube. Have to adjust it. So adjusting the orientation and then scale it up a little bit. Now come to the perspective, and you can understand I have to scale it over here. Alright. Now by selecting the vertices of the roof and giving a curve over here, this is a shortcut for the isolate selection. So just by toggling it, you can select an object, and or whatever your selection is, you can isolate it. Now selecting the other side and deleting it, and selecting these two, freeze transformation, and Ctrl D, duplicate and -1, and you can see I have created the other side. Now coming to this side plank, and I will insert one edge loop. So I am selecting insert edge loop 2, and now selecting offset edge loop and giving 2 more edge loops. Now selecting the loops, I am adjusting and also giving it a curve. That's fine. Now selecting it and pressing D in the keyboard and changing the pivot point, and modify freeze transformation and X scaling -1, so that the other side also we have got. Now let's give an edge loop in this area and delete the other side, selecting all these faces and extrude. I'm getting a little thickness in this area, you can see. Now I will select these faces, and I'm going to edit mesh and extract. So you can see this is a different object now. Selecting it, isolate selection, and by selected these faces, I am scaling it down to make it a straight line. That's fine, and delete it. Now I'll just go to mesh and mirror, and mirror I am doing negative side, you can see. And now this is a single object. That's fine. Now I am giving insert edge loop both the sides and isolate select, and you can see these are problematic, so I will just split it by using multi-cut tool. Now let's give 2 edge loops by offset edge loop tool. That's fine. Now inserting one more edge loop after each loops. Alright. Now selecting all the first loops and scale it up, and you can see it is taking the shape of the tiles. and now I'll just move it up. That's looking fine. Now isolate select, and I'm selecting all the hard edges. Alright, the sides also I need to select, and going to edit mesh and bevel. The width will depend according to the scene size, and segments can be 2 or 3. Alright, pressing 3, and you can see I'm getting good result, but the corners I need to insert 2 more edge loops just to get the sharp edges. Now it is looking fine. Now let's take another cube for the roof plank, and translating it, I have given one segment. By selecting the faces, I am deleting one side of it. Now selecting this face, I am extruding it, pulling it out, scaling it up and rotating it, and inserting another edge loop and giving it a curve. Selecting it in object mode, I can see some overlapping in that area, so I'll just scale it down that particular edge. Alright. Selecting the object, going to modify, freeze transformation, and Ctrl D and negative Z scaling to get the other side. Now I want to create a window in this area, so giving 2 edge loops and selecting this face and delete. Coming to the other side and giving edge loop just to make room for the chimney. Selecting this face and extrude, pulling it up, scaling it down a little bit. Once again extrude, scaling it up, once again extrude, again pulling it up, again extrude, scaling it down, again extrude, push it inside and delete. And you can see I have blocked in the chimney. Now this side, let's make another window. So I am inserting edge loops, and I need to adjust the edges a little bit. So let's slide the edge loops. I am not translating it, I am sliding it, and select the face and delete. Now let's come to this wall. I am taking multi-cut tool and splitting this area just to create a hole and delete. Creating 2 more edge loops to create the door, and by selecting the faces I am deleting it, inserting another edge loop. Now by selecting the vertices, I am creating another window at the top, and you can see I am sliding, adjust more, and by selecting the faces, just delete it. Inserting more edge loops in this area for my future modeling. Now I am going to model the tiles, and for that I am duplicating the roof for my assumption of the proportion of the tiles. Alright, now I am planning to model the individual tiles. So I am going to create and taking a cube, scale it up a little bit, then flatten it, and deleting the bottom face and giving it a shape of a tablet, inserting an edge loop and pulling the edge. Because the front side I will make it a little bit round, giving 2 more edge loops. Now pressing 3, you can see the edges should be sharper, so selecting all the edges, border edges. I'm going to edit mesh and bevel. As I told, the width will depend upon us, and the segment you can keep 2 or 3. Over here I have kept 1 because my plan is to smooth it later on. A little bit adjustment. So this is one tile. I will keep it on the surface and will duplicate it several times, and by scaling and translating I'll try to create the variation. So I'll make it fast forward because this is a process of repetition only. Making all the tiles different in size just to create a variation so that it should look interesting, and I will keep doing the same thing for all the tiles, and I will try to arrange each and every tile in its proper position and proportion. Alright, now I'm selecting all the tiles and going to deform and selecting vertice, making the divisions 6, 2 and 6, and right click lattice point, and you can see I can move all the geometry together to this deformer. So by selecting the lattice point, I am deforming my tiles according to the rooftop. If you want to do it individually, it will be very tedious. So we can take the help of this deformer, which is really a nice way to work. So select everything, go to edit, delete by type history, and the deformer is gone, and the deformation is permanent now. Once again creating a cube, and I want to create the frame over here, so scaling it down a little bit, giving the length of the frame, and I will duplicate it and will make all the 4 sides like this. Alright, now going to Windows, Outliner, and I'm selecting all the objects and Ctrl G and making it a group. Now positioning the tiles on the rooftop. Alright, now selecting the group and changing the pivot point to the center axis and Ctrl D and X scaling -1. You can see I have got the same thing in this side also, but here I need to change the position of the tiles a little bit differently. So I'll fix it quickly. Alright, now creating a new layer in the channel box, selecting everything, right click and add selected objects and clicking off the visibility. Now I am going to create some wooden planks and later on I am going to arrange it throughout the hut. So taking a cube, scaling it up, and in the y-axis scaling it down. Now selecting all the edges, going to edit mesh and bevel. Let's keep the segment 2 and apply. Now I am going to unwrap this. Here is one suggestion. If you are planning to duplicate an object multiple times, first make sure you are unwrapping it and then you are duplicating it. There you will save a lots of time. So going to UV editor I am selecting. So this is my UV space, and now going to tools and show UV tools. Alright, clicking on the checker box and you can see on the object the checker boxes are looking stretched. So at the very beginning, let's give it a mapping. It can be automatic or planar. Here I am selecting automatic and coming to the viewport and scaling it until unless all the checker boxes are coming in square shape. So you can see it is becoming square in shape. If I simply unfold it, then also it can come, but some of you, if you are using previous version of Maya, so that unfold is not that much powerful. So I am showing you the legacy process of working. So it is looking fine now, and you can see all the checker boxes are looking very similar. So I'm pressing 3 and corners are looking stretched. So I need to lock the corners by giving extra edge loops. So I'm adding extra edge loops and let's check what's happening. Still I can see some distortion in the checker boxes because in between the loops are very minimum. So in between I am adding 3 more edge loops, and later on definitely I am going to use more edge loops to deform this geometry a little bit. And now you can see still the corners are looking problematic. I'm selecting the side edges and I'm going to connect all the UV shells together. So I'm selecting one side of it and going to save and click on stitch together. So for all the UV shells I'm doing the same thing. Alright, now for both the sides also the same thing, and for the bottom. Alright, so this is one UV shell now. Now pressing 3 and you can see almost it is looking fine, so it will work for me. Now closing these windows. Alright, select this, Ctrl D, and I'm duplicating it thrice and maybe one more time. Alright, so my plan is to make 4 different kinds of wooden planks, and by selecting the vertices I am going to modify each and every shape and will try to create 4 different variations. Alright, now go close to one of the wooden plank and creating 3 edge loops, and by selecting the middle edge loop, okay, I'm just pushing it inside and you can see I have created a kind of crack. So for all the wooden planks I'm going to do the same thing, and then only in detailing also there will be variation. Alright, these are looking fine, and I'm selecting all and keeping it aside, and my next plan is to create a bigger plank, and for that I am again starting with a cube. Scaling it up a little bit. In y-axis I will scale it down. Alright, now I'm using multi-cut tool to give different cuts and creating variation. Alright, this is looking fine. Now taking insert edge loop tool, and what I did previously, all 3 edge loops I have to give, and by selecting the middle loop I'll just scale it to create the crack. Now I am randomly selecting some of the faces and pulling it up just to create some random wooden planks out of this surface, and for the bottom also I am going to do the same thing. And you can see now it is looking like so many wooden planks are connected together For the side faces also, I am going to do the same thing. It should be uneven, not in a single line. Alright, this is looking fine. Now selecting all the border edges and I am going to edit mesh and bevel. The width can be a little more. Okay, it is almost done. You can see after pressing 3, I am losing the corners. So inserting edge loops. Now press 3. It is fine. Alright. Now I am going to unwrap this also. So going to UV editor and selecting the tools and show UV tools, and I'll just dock it. Alright. Click on the checker box, going to the top view and go to create and selecting planar mapping and going to the option box and make sure the camera is selected. Now there is a little stretch, so I am scaling it up so that all the checker boxes should look approximately square in shape. It is fine, but the sides are not looking correct. So before doing anything, I'll just select all my seams and I will cut the seams. So you can see I am selecting all the border edges and clicking on cut. So you can see all the UV shells are separate now. This is the bottom face, this is the top face, and those lines are the sides, I guess. A red UV shell means the UVs are flipped, so I need to flip it once again. So going to the transform, and there is flip, and I'm just clicking on flip. And you can see now it is converted blue, so everything is fine. Now I have selected two sides and going to the front view and going to create and once again planar mapping. Click on the checker box and over here once again I'm just scaling it to get the checker boxes correctly in square shape. Alright, and here also you can see the UV shells are changing, so now it is looking fine to me. Over here also overlapping is there. I will just drag the UV shell and this is flipped, so I need to flip it once again in V, and this is alright. Now I am going to do the same thing with the other two sides. Now select the border edges and come to the cut and sew option and click on stitch together. That's fine, you can see the side faces are stitched together. I'm doing the same thing with all the four sides. So after stitching you can see some edges are still remaining, so I'm selecting those edges and I'm clicking on save. So I'm doing for each and every corners. It is alright. I'm doing the same thing. Over here you can see some overlapping, so selecting those UVs and clicking on unfold. Alright, so I have to check all the corners, and if same things are there, I have to unfold it. So selecting all the overlapped areas, and I'm clicking on unfold. Alright. Fine. So the UV shell is looking fine to me. Later on, during unwrapping, I will move all the UV shells to the positive space. Okay, so click on the visibility of the house. Now select this wooden plank and isolate it, selecting all the corner edges and applying bevel. Here I have used only one segment because later on I am going to smooth it. Now giving more edge loops, and now I am taking multi-cut tool, and you can see I am trying to create a third loop to make the crack. Alright, I am going to do the same thing for this side also, and the third loop and pushing it inside, and like this we can create the crack. Inserting one more edge loop in this area. So like this I will work with all the wooden planks, and I will make it a little bit fast forward because these are all repetitions in the process. Here in this area, I am duplicating the front planks only towards the back. For this also, I am going to work with the same process. I am explaining the process once again. First select all the border edges, then bevel it with maybe one subdivision or two subdivision level, and then give a cross loop, and along all those cross loops give 3 edge loops and select the middle loop and give the deformation, and that's all. Okay, so now taking the wooden plank, and I am planning to arrange all these wooden planks all around the hut and that also will be randomly. And so I'm checking the correct orientation of it and trying to place it exactly on the wall. I'm scaling it up and selecting the vertices at the corner, and I'm trying to adjust it both the sides. Okay, now you can see it is fixed. It is looking fine, and like this I will take different wooden planks and I will adjust in different areas with correct orientation. Just to understand what are the areas we are going to arrange those wooden planks, a preliminary sketch is very important. So you should have a design beforehand, before the modeling, so that during modeling you will not be wasting your time with trial and error process where to add those wooden planks. That is the reason beforehand only I made a sketch of it, and then just by looking at my sketch I'm just modeling it, arranging the wooden planks, so there will be no confusion. You can see over here, though I have duplicated all the planks from the same geometry, now by selecting the vertices and changing the shape so that all the wooden bars should look different. And I think, to me, this is called detailing. Making very small parts, obviously that is called detailing, but these are also called detailing. Detailing and design. I'm just doing the same everywhere, and from different areas I'm just selecting the vertices and changing the orientation, changing the shape, and you have seen I already have unwrapped it. But there will not be a problem because later on I am going to unfold all these UV shells, so it will not create any problem later on, because definitely all the scaling of the wooden planks are different. Anyway, I need to scale it at the end. So for the window frames also, I am doing the same thing, arranging the wooden planks. If we are duplicating the same geometry, then make sure by modifying the vertices, you are changing the shape a little bit so that it will look different. Now let's come to the chimney, and I'm selecting the faces, going to edit mesh and extract, and you can see this is a different object. Now selecting the vertices, I'm changing the shape a little bit. Now selecting all the border edges, I'm going to edit mesh and bevel. Alright. Now let's make the window shade. So I'm selecting the geometry and duplicating it and changing the pivot point so that it will be easy for me to keep it over there, and I have to scale it with its correct proportion. Now once again, taking this geometry, I will place over there for the support of the window shade. Few more modification with the vertices. Okay, this is looking fine. Now arranging some more wooden planks, both the sides. So you can see I am modifying the same wooden plank and I am adjusting it everywhere. There will be a stretch mark in the UV texture editor, so later on during unwrapping I have to take care of those areas. So for now, you can see I'm just adjusting and duplicating all these. So I'm just duplicating the same thing towards that direction. Okay, this is looking fine. Now let's create the front door shade. So for that I'm just duplicating this object and I'm placing it properly, changing the pivot point towards its base so that it will be very easy for the orientation and scaling. Alright, I'm selecting this geometry and duplicating it, trying to fit it over there. Duplicating once again and making the base. Fine. Taking this wooden plank and making the pillars. Placing it properly. Changing the shape a little bit so that both the sides will look different. Scaling it down. Alright, this is looking fine. Now coming to the side view and going to the create polygon tool, and I am creating a polygon in this area. You can see I'm just drawing it. You can get create polygon tool by going to mesh tool option. I'm selecting the object and center pivot. and trying to convert everything into quads by multicut tool. Now selecting the faces, I'm extruding it. That's fine. Now I have to select all the edges, outer edges. And now I have to bevel it to sharpen the edges. Edit mesh and bevel. Alright. Place it properly. Now I'll just duplicate it, Ctrl D, and keeping it this side. Okay. Now I'm selecting everything and keeping it in the layer and naming it as house, keeping these objects in a different layer. Now taking a plane and smoothing it, alright, and giving it a shape. I'm trying to create the base by selecting the edges and just extruding it. And now let's modify the shape, adding one more edge loop. Now by selecting the vertices, I am deforming the shape a little bit so that the shape should not look very regular. Over here, by pressing B in the keyboard, I am getting that soft selection. Again selecting the edge, I'm applying bevel. Little more modification by selecting the vertices. By selecting the edges, go to Mesh Display and Soften Edge. Alright, this is looking fine. In the next videos, I am going to model the tree and stones, and also I am going to sculpt the hut, the tree and the stones. And then later videos, I am going to show you how to texture it in Substance Painter. And then we are going to render all the maps in Maya. All the links are given in the description. If you want to jump to any of those topics, please check the links. Hope you enjoyed this session, and don't forget to subscribe for the future videos. Thank you very much for watching.